Okay, so now let's talk about George Washington as we can see him in a biography. So remember the historical fiction that we read? Well, it was about a real person, but the story wasn't real. Now we are going to read a biography. A biography describes actual, real events. It tells us about real people. It uses real facts. It uses accurate information that has been documented in history. And it illustrates or describes real events. So, guys, a biography is actually the true history of a person or an event. Well, let's read a part of a biography on George Washington. George Washington was born on February 22nd, 1732, in Virginia, to Augustine and Mary Washington. He grew up on the family farms of Mount Vernon and Ferry Farm. His father died when he was 11 years old. Washington then went to live with his older brother. He attended school and learned how to live as a wealthy member of society. When his brother passed away, Washington inherited the family lands at Mount Vernon. He lived there and farmed throughout his life. Do you notice a difference between this biography and the historical fiction we just read? That is a lot of true facts. Yes, the historical fiction did not give us true facts, but the biography does. In 1752, Washington joined the Virginia militia. He quickly became a leader. He led small groups of troops into battle against the French during the French-Indian War. Throughout this conflict, Washington won some battles and lost some battles. He became the leader of the Virginia militia at age 23. That's some interesting information about George Washington. I wonder, does any of that tell you what he was like as a person or what his personality might be like? After leaving the militia in 1759, Washington married Martha Burns. They lived at Mount Vernon, and Washington continued to farm. He worked hard and earned a lot of money and land. He was also elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses in 1758. After speaking out against some of the laws that the British put into place, Washington was elected to the Continental Congress in 1775. He also became the leader of the Continental Army. Although Washington had not trained as a soldier, his time as the militia leader helped him win some battles against the British Army. The Continental Army had lots of challenges. They had a few weapons, the soldiers had no training as fighters, and there was little money to buy supplies for the soldiers. Throughout the war, General Washington stayed with his troops instead of returning home. He spent the tough winter of 1777 with the soldiers. Over the next few years, Washington lost many times. The Continental Army finally got help from the French Navy and won the Revolutionary War in 1783. There is something in this paragraph that gives me a clue about General Washington's personality and how he feels about the men that are serving with him. Where can you find the text evidence? What does it say that gives us a hint about his personality? Let's keep reading. After returning home to Mount Vernon, George Washington became the first president of the United States of America in 1789. He was elected for a second term as president in 1792. Before turning down a third term in 1796, During his presidency, Washington worked hard to form a government that would last. After serving as president for 8 years, Washington retired to Mount Vernon in 1797. He lived there until his death in December of 1799. So now, you tell me, how were these two passages alike? Were they both about the same person? What else was similar? What other topics did they mention in both articles? How were they different? What happened in the historical fiction? Was that all true? What about the biography? Was the biography true? Or were parts of it made up? What is the difference between a historical fiction and a biography?